Welcome to Sunday Wisdom Sessions. Today we conclude our study of the book by Swami Parthasarathy, The Fall of the Human Intellect. And whereas the first session in this series, I think all the way back to episode 42, the topic was The Fall of the Human, inspired by the title of the book, where as a human being, we've got such potential, such capacity. And what are we doing with this potential? We have the ability to change our nature. We have the ability to mold the environment, the elements, inspire others, collaborate. And despite all these different talents, and perhaps the utmost important one, find enlightenment. With all this potential, what are we doing as human beings? We are competing, consuming, competing, and instead of living and producing a world of harmony, there's so much of discord. Perhaps if we go back to what makes us human, we can raise the level of humanity by functioning based on what is our design rather than what is our default. So for instance, the book started talking about how there seems to be this organization in the universe, in the cosmos. There's this orchestra of life where there's just the right number of carnivores to herbivores to marine life. All of it seems balanced, and the cycle of life continues. But with human beings, we are also part of that cycle. We are also part of this nature, and we have the ability to enjoy the world just as much. But instead of understanding and integrating in this world, we've allowed the one species to become so dominant, to live not in harmony with others, but at the expense of others. And this starts off in a small way with the environment. There's a neglect of the environment. There is not caring for the environment, the way we tap resources. But then it goes a little bit further, and it's the same mindset, and this is what we need to examine. It's the same mindset that goes into, okay, what about how do we treat other beings? So then we see humanity as the dominant species is able to exploit and extract from other beings in terms of for food, for recreation, sport, even for company, the pet industry. Did the dog choose to be with you? Did the cat choose to be with you? Did a fish choose to be in your area? And this is where we start thinking about it. Okay, so fine. As the strongest species, as the species that has more powers, different powers, we've been making use of this world, but extend that mindset. How will we treat other human beings? Will we abuse that strength? And we're seeing that in the world. Those who are stronger, instead of having the responsibility to look after those who are weaker and develop the strength of those around who may not have that strength, we're rather using it for our profit, for our needs, for our protection, for our security. But then you go into the same mindset, okay, so if that's happening maybe from nation to nation, a people versus another people, a tribe versus another tribe, the same thing's going to happen at the smaller unit, where it is each family member for themselves. Brothers not talking, sisters not talking, parents and children not talking, but it's that same mindset of me for myself. And this is a predominant trait of the mind. The mind tends to be selfish because it gets an immediate pleasure from there. But the ability to expand, to look beyond, to think of that I don't live in isolation. And to take care of myself means to take care of those around me. It means to take care of the world around them, to take care of the community around that, to take care of the place that we're in the world that we inhabit. To have that kind of vision requires not instant gratification, but a pause, a thought, a looking with a bigger canvas of life. William Wordsworth, right in the beginning of the book, Swamiji quotes this line. It says, "It grieves my heart to think what man has made of man when every flower enjoys the air it breathes." This is exactly it. It seems like nature's enjoying. You see a flower looking at towards the sun. We walk past a particular field every morning when we're staying in Geneva, and it's a field of sunflowers. And every flower turns its head and just enjoys the sun, basking, empowering. As human beings, do we notice the sun? Rising, falling? Do we take a moment to enjoy maybe the wind at the back of your neck? The smell of the earth when it rains? We have the ability to change that. And that's what this topic is about. This topic is about the rise of the human. So in today's session, we're going to keep more time for questions because we did have some questions from the previous sessions about return to authentic self, finding that real I, the spirit within. But we are going to highlight before that the summary, the key aspects of the last few sessions covering the book, a summary of that, and then close with, before we open up to Q&A, close with the idea of, okay, I understand the predicament. Humanity is destroying itself and the world around by our selfish, mind-led actions. What can I do about it? What is my role in the revival, in my rise of humanity, in bringing back this intellect? What can I do about it? And that's the question that we'll close with. So starting from the beginning, I open it up to the group. What were your key takeaways from the study of this book? Just a line or a phrase.
I'll go. I think there was more questions than answers for me. Like currently standing, my question is why do you think we measure impact? Obviously for good, but for what reasons? And then my question kind of starts from there.
Okay. So more questions, just that statement alone, that's a positive outcome from the sessions. Okay. I come back to your question.
For me, the preeminence of the intellect and the various facets of intellect, clear thinking and control over mind, and what is not being touched upon so much, the inculcation of higher values. And it's these three which really make for a strong intellect. And the whole idea is to strengthen it and to keep it on an alert mode because we tend to miss it out. That's been my big takeaway.
Okay. The rise of the intellect as that part of us also making us human. So we know the mind functions automatically. It's there since birth. The intellect is also there. It appears, but is not developed and is not used. So one aspect is to start using the intellect. Second, to manage this mind. Okay, anyone else?
To develop the intellect as to questioning and getting more understanding.
To develop the intellect through questioning, develop understanding. So when we examined right at the beginning of the book, the first point that came up was that there is a difference in our thinking between the mind and the intellect, between emotions and reasoning. We discussed other aspects as well. We discussed that a human being is made up of the self, the spirit, that is the spirit component, but the material components are the body, the mind, and the intellect. And this distinction between mind and intellect, very few know. Because when we make a decision, we think that all thoughts are the same. But depending on the nature of thought, it falls under the mind or the intellect. So that's the first aspect that got covered in the book. So the mind is that which has the desires, the emotions, the likes and dislikes, intuition, herd instinct. Right? So all aspects that come from our subconscious, from aspects that we've just absorbed into our programming, and that's how we react. But the ability to take a step back, to pause, to reason, to judge and decide, to be self-aware, to be objective, is the intellect. Now, as a human being, we have been functioning by the mind. This intellect has not been developed for centuries because it's not there in the education system. It's not being taught from parent to child, generation to generation. So the mind is leading most of our pursuits. So many things that we do, if we examine and we just ask, why? And if there's no answer to that, it means it's mind-led. But why do you do this on Sundays? And why do you wear what you wear? And why do you eat what you eat? And if we don't have a reason, it's because we've not thought about it. We've just gone along with the flow, accepted it. This is the mind. Now, the intellect means conscious, deliberate living. And the effects of conscious, deliberate living means that you can change your programming. And we can change it for something better. We can change it for something that appeals to not just us, but appeals to those around us. The beauty of this subject is that it's logical. And when it gives the reasons to any particular decision that we make, it is based on what is the best way towards the happiness that I seek. So it asks the fundamental questions. Is this taking me to the happiness that I seek? Is this taking me to the goals that I've pitched up in life? Is this taking me towards the roles that I want to be? And Deepak mentioned also the values that I want to hold dear. This is the role of the intellect. In understanding the distinction between mind and intellect, we learn firstly about the nature of the mind. And the nature of the mind fell into these categories. We said that if we follow just the mind, if a person does not know the intellect, this is what will happen to the person. The mind wreaks havoc. Why? First one is emotions. So the emotions take over. But the emotions don't have a direction, don't have a dimension. So it can ask for anything. It can feel anything. And you don't reason with emotion. The emotion is there. So if the emotion takes over, you become a passenger in your own life. That emotion is fueling you. It could be anger, it could be sorrow, it could be grief. And you may want to recover from grief, you're not able to. You may want to be objective, but if the emotion is too strong, you cannot. The second aspect is herd instinct. And herd instinct is where there is this pressure of the mind, perhaps from our conditioning from thousands of years ago, where we needed it for survival, because to follow the masses was a form of survival. Now to follow the masses, it's almost the opposite. You follow the masses, you're going to end up in trouble. And we share that quote by Mark Twain. Whenever you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. So the second aspect we covered was herd instinct. And do you remember we gave the example? We went through it exhaustively. The 6 reasons for marriage means, why do we do what we do? And marriage was an example of that. Have we really analyzed why a person needs marriage? Or is it one of those stages in life that we've just taken for granted that this is the treadmill that we follow? And we examined it. Who actually needs marriage? And do I actually need it? And this is using the intellect. And that's why once we start on this path, as Amina mentioned, there are more questions than answers. So that middle phase where we are starting to use the intellect and all sorts of questions are coming up. And at one point, a person wrote to Swamiji, my teacher, and said, I was a very happy man until I met you. Because now you got me thinking. You made me think, and I don't have the answers, and I'm not sure what I'm doing is correct. And before, I was just in blissful ignorance. I was just going along with the flow. I was doing what others are doing, and I did not know better. And the moment I asked the question, can it be better? Uh-oh. Now there are options. But this is the path of a person who chooses to question the herd. It means there is a bit of solitude, because just questioning it, you find there's a little bit of isolation. The herd has not questioned it, so they reject you in a way. They isolate you because you're questioning. And then if you choose to act differently, so you may still follow the herd, but you're doing it now with your own conviction. But if you choose to act apart from what people usually do, so for instance, me choosing a path of teaching philosophy instead of the conventional 9-to-5 job, it was different. It was unusual. People were shocked at it. So there is an isolation in that. Now, do you have the strength for that? Because yes, it is going to be a better life, but when? Because right now it doesn't seem that way in the beginning. When people are questioning your choice, when people are not supporting you emotionally, do you have the strength for it? Then we have the likes and dislikes. And we spoke about likes and dislikes. That we don't like perhaps exercise initially. We don't like healthy food. But the ability to be independent of your likes and dislikes, to not be a victim of them, to not let them control you. Not that we have them, but we run them through the intellect. Worries and anxieties. The mind likes to go through the past, so much of nostalgia. This is why we have so many photo albums and our storage is all taken up by photos. How many of those photos do you go through? We had my father's 80th birthday. So because of that occasion, albums came down from the loft. And all these albums that were not touched, not used. Okay, it was a trip down memory lane. But really for that one day, you keep albums upon albums. Photos. Past. Nostalgia. Regret. This is all living in the past. Or the mind has worry and anxiety. So worry, we said, for the past. Anxiety is for the future. What's going to happen? So we need the intellect to keep the mind in the present. We need the intellect to not be a victim of likes and dislikes. We need the intellect to chart our own course so we get the inspiration of our own conviction, not the herd instinct. We need the intellect to manage the emotions. And the last one was, the mind constantly generates desires, is never happy with anything except, anybody? Nothing can fulfill the mind. Nothing can satiate this ever-thirsty mind except what is it?
And less desires and higher goal.
Less desires, higher goal. What is the one thing that can satisfy the mind? The self. Self-realization.
Self-reflection.
Self-reflection. When you know your identity, when you know the self within, complete. Otherwise, the mind will endlessly generate more and more desires. So we've understood this nature of the mind. While it has positive emotions, and there are positive things that the herd does as well, by itself can cause so much of chaos in our lives. So we need the intellect to manage the mind. But here's the important distinction. It is not the mind versus the intellect. It is the mind and the intellect. A human being is both a feeling and a thinking being. And that's important. It means that we can take the mind's input into account, but don't act directly on the mind. Run the data of the mind through the analysis of the intellect and then decide. So don't suppress the mind. Don't frustrate the mind. To have emotions is a virtue. To have passion, it fuels you. But it needs the intellect to give it that steering, that direction, that guidance. Then our decisions have our full personality behind it. Our body, our mind, and our intellect aligned with each other. Not the mind by itself. The intellect takes the mind, brings the mind onto our personal alignment, the goals that we want to achieve, and then we feel a flow. We feel an ease. We feel an inspiration in what we do. And that's when we got into, there are 4 stages of intellect. So if there is no intellect, the mind takes over. The second stage of the intellect is where the intellect is weak, but it's there and it's held hostage by the mind. So the mind hijacks the intellect. And remember, we spoke about the chick in the poem The Pond, who wants to go swimming, and despite all the warnings, despite the differences between a duck and a chick that it sees, actually doesn't see, it justifies to itself that yes, it's okay to go swimming. This justification is when the mind holds your intellect hostage. But if your intellect is strong enough, it sees through what the mind is doing, it governs the mind, but perhaps it doesn't reason correctly. It doesn't connect cause and effect so well. So it might be working, it might be able to govern the mind, but it's not the best reasoning. So we can still make mistakes if our intellect is not strengthened. But it's a good start because using the intellect means the intellect's going to get stronger. And the next level intellect is when there is strong management of the mind, strong quality reasoning. And those decisions where your intellect has got the mind under perfect supervision and the reasoning is sound and clear, scientific, you will get the perfect outcome. The decisions that you make will be effective, will lean towards success of that particular action. And that's what we're aiming for. In short, what is one word to describe this process? Intellect, managing the mind, reasoning clearly. What is one word?
Objectivity.
Excellent.
Is it?
Objectivity.
Balance.
Balance, yes. Balance means, is it 50% mind, 50% intellect? It's 100% intellect. So it's not that sometimes the intellect can take a break. The intellect is our steering wheel. You can't let go of the steering wheel. The mind is the motor. The intellect's got to guide it. So the word we're looking for is, as mentioned, objectivity. the ability to stand and observe your emotions and your thoughts, reason and analyze it. It comes from the Latin word. And in Latin, it means something thrown before thought. So now we're so involved in our mind, we can't see apart from it. But to be objective means to put something in front of you to examine. So that means to be objective is you got to stand outside your mind, your emotions, your feelings, and look at it as you with another person. With that clear objectivity, with that clarity. And that's why we're so good at advising others. We know what they should do, what they shouldn't do, but so difficult to advise ourselves when we are going through an emotional time. And what is the difference? The lack of objectivity. We get involved, we get attached to a situation or a person, and we lose our clarity. So then, okay, we understand the importance of the intellect. Do we really? Because it's not just in decision making where objectivity comes in. It comes in also in our faith, in religion. The way we approach the unknown, the way we move towards God, spirit, self. Do we do it just on belief, herd instinct? Is the belief blind belief, or is it a belief based on corroboratory evidence? And that's where the intellect can come in and make that faith that much stronger. But not just leave faith as belief, but take that faith, which is required in the initial stage of any particular pursuit or path, but to take that faith and give it its discipline and take you all the way into becoming. The word we learnt in Sanskrit for that is called Shraddha, where you take something which you believe and you go all the way through the process, through all that consistency of purpose until you come to know what you believed in. Then you don't need faith, then you have experience. Now, if we're just having faith, we don't move, we don't grow, and that faith can be shaken because it doesn't have the conviction of our intellect. But with the conviction of our intellect, we can ride that faith all the way to becoming. Enlightenment, God realization, self-realization. But this intellect can also be used for success. We spoke about the 3 C's: concentration, consistency, cooperation. The same intellect can be used to keep you inspired with those values or those higher ideals that you aim to pursue. The intellect keeps you disciplined, keeps you consistent. And by practicing the 3 C's, we get to the personality we want, we get to the goal that we want in life. And the other aspect that we covered, why the intellect is so essential in human life, is the ability to relate to the world, to others. It is not the world that causes us stress and disharmony. It is not the other person that causes the confrontation. It is our ability to relate to them. We can decide our own stress and peace depending on how we decide to relate to that person, that situation, that object, the world. So remember, an experience is both subject meeting the object. But when we relate, we blame the other person. You've given away your power. You've given away your peace. Now you're on remote control. The other person can control you. They walk into the room. If you don't like them, you get upset. You get tense. How does a person have that kind of control on you? Take back the remote. Say, I can choose how to relate. You may not go up and say hello to the person, but you don't have to be affected by the person. Or you can choose how to converse. You know how to connect with a difficult person, with an egoistic person, with a selfish person. Selfish people are so easy to relate to. Why? Because you know if it benefits them, they are with you. Egoistic people, so easy, flatter them. Arrogant people, praise them. Sensitive people, be considerate. Unselfish people, that's an interesting one because they're looking for opportunities to give, to serve. So sometimes you've got to give them the opportunity to let them help you. It's an interesting one. But this is the art of relating. And the intellect, instead of just looking at ourselves, we've got to examine and assess the other person to figure out how to relate to them. Having understood the importance of the intellect, what is it that we're doing then when we go to school or university or do a particular academic course? And that's where we came across the distinction, not of mind and intellect. Now we go further. Intellect and intelligence. Intelligence is part of the mind. It is memory. It is data. It is knowledge. But it does not bring about transformation. That information, when reflected upon, that becomes intellect. So if we are not reflecting on the data, on our experiences, we don't get wiser by it. We don't get an intellect that can manage our mind. So there could be a situation where you have incredible intelligence, you know exactly what to do, but you're not able to do it because of your conflicting desires. An alcoholic might know exactly what alcohol is doing to liver, family life, finances, all of it. They know it. They know the health predicament that they're in. But they do not have the intellect to manage the mind's desire for alcohol. A person could be brilliant in helping couples that are battling, struggling to get together, a marriage counselor. But that person, and I've met such people, personally twice divorced. So they've got all the knowledge, information, but not the intellect to manage the mind's desires. So what is the difference between intellect and intelligence? Because in this world, intelligence has been prioritized over the ability to manage our own mind, the intellect. Intelligence is not intellect. And these are a few points that we covered. What can intellect do that intelligence cannot do? One, the quality of our decision making. And I'm sure some of you are using AI in the forms of ChatGPT, Claude, etc. And when you're doing a question or a prompt, you don't get the answer that you want. But in order to get the answer that you want, you got to be clear about what you're looking for. Now that clarity is the intellect. And unless you have that clarity about what you're looking for, can you actually get the answer, the outcome, the right decision that you're looking for? So you need an intellect to have that clarity because there's all that information out there. But which information do you take and use? To understand the information, to process the information is an intellect. Information by itself is useless. We need an interpreter. We need the data. So much of this knowledge of Vedanta, it's incredible. But it's so terse and cryptic. We need an intellect, and that's where these teachers, the gurus come in, to help us decode it, to help us understand its relevance, to bring it and explain it in a way we can understand. And then also, intelligence deals with the known. It is part of the mind. The intellect is that part of you which is able to penetrate the unknown. The mind cannot do this. So the mind can only envisage the known, different combinations, different permutations, but the intellect can conceive beyond that. So the ability to think originally, be outstanding, to take that information, play with it, come up with something completely new. What makes you a genius doctor compared to any doctor that goes through medical school is the intellect. To come up with a patent, a new life-saving surgery. So we've got think originally and be outstanding. Then manage the mind's desires. We gave the example of the marriage counselor, the alcoholic. Handle challenges, to deal with the stress of challenges, to not succumb, but to rise above it, overcome them, and then grow from them. This is an intellect. And the last part is, which intelligence can't do. And this will be the limitation of AI. It cannot achieve consciousness. It cannot find pure consciousness because pure consciousness is subjective. It's within you. And that intelligence cannot have access to what the human being can use the intellect for and ultimately cross the intellect and experience that pure consciousness. So the intellect can guide you by inquiry, by introspection, to go within and then beyond. So we come to the end of the book. And the last portion of the book was, all this is well and good. Managing our desires, success, etc. But the real purpose of life is to find absolute happiness, lasting bliss. And for that, we need the subtle intellect to go beyond the world, to ask, where have I come from? What is the purpose of this life? What is beyond this world? And that is the subtle intellect. And the subtle intellect, every human being has. It's a question of how we activate it and what we do once it's activated. And if given the right material and the right direction, that subtle intellect can take you on the path to religare, yuj, yoga, which means to join and to unite, to draw back, to reconnect with your original identity, your original nature, your real self. The spirit, the Godhead within. You lack nothing. We are complete. But it's the ignorance of our fullness that causes all the problems. You mean right now I'm a king? Yes. You mean right now I lack nothing? Yes. You are supreme. But it's not a question of repeating in the mirror, I am supreme, I am infinite, I am omnipotent. It is a subjective understanding that I am the substratum of everything. I am not the meager wave, I am the mighty ocean. And for that, it requires staying with the subject, absorbing it. This is what a human being is capable of. And imagine if we could have this education rolled out through the world. Imagine in primary schools, preschools, ourselves, children, grandchildren, if they started off life at the age of 6, 7, 8, learning BMI, body, mind, intellect, what a start. Bring self, spirit into the conversation, into the education. Maybe later, but start with body, mind, intellect. Just as 1, 2, 3, ABC. How do I choose? How do I think? Am I using my mind? Am I using my intellect? This is intelligence. This is not intellect. Am I practicing what I'm learning? Do I understand what I'm being taught? Is this my decision or my friend's decision? Imagine if we can start this dialogue. And just asking these questions activates that latent intellect in every human being. But then how? If we've got a thinking civilization, can you imagine the difference? If you've got a considerate society, what would that look like? Just it changes. And we experience it, we see it when we travel. It could be your airport experience. Your airport experience is different when there is consideration from others. Your driving experience is different. Your travel experience is different. Just a little bit of consideration. When people visit the Vedanta Academy, they are blown away. They're inspired, they're amazed. And when I think about it, okay, what is it about the academy? Because the food, all right, it's good. Okay, so it's tasty. You're not going to lose weight when you come there. So if you're thinking you're coming for a spa experience, you're going to lose a couple of kgs. No, the food is very good. You will put on weight. But then again, it's not that spectacular to say that the academy is amazing. So what is it? Is it the knowledge? Yes, the knowledge is incredible. But it's the people. It's the community. And it's the community living on intellect and on these values. And we get an idea of people from different backgrounds, different ages, different religions, coming together to learn about life. And if we can have that working in a microcosm, why can't it spread to a community or a country? And why not the world? So we get inspired. Now what? What do we do? And there are people who have been following the subject for many years, and they come forward and they ask, what can I do, Sudhakar? I'm reading the books, I'm enjoying it. What can I do? I want your help. I want to be part of this. And the idea is, first, develop your intellect. You work on yourself. Because then you become the lighthouse, you become the beacon, you become the person people go to. In your family, in your organization, they're the people who will come to you because you've developed yourself. It's automatic. That's the first thing. So are you studying? Are you questioning? Are you going through your regular study? Now, what does that look like? Developing the intellect. So the first part is thinking and questioning. Right? So when we question, we're using the intellect as a muscle. Second, our daily morning study to reflect, to make that information about this knowledge transformation. Now we know about intellect, doesn't mean our intellect's managing our mind. We've got to stay with it. And I'm saying half an hour to 1 hour every morning, or when you have some time, commit to this. An ideal I would recommend is the e-learning course. So best would be come to the Vedanta Academy, do the 3-year residential course. You've got a head start on life, intellect is activated. But since not everybody has that freedom of time, resources to come to India and do the course, do the e-learning. And the Vedanta e-learning course are the same lectures that Swamiji, the author, has given, and you get access to all of that, and you go year by year. So you start with first year, you cover the intro books just as we have done now, but you go into more detail, and you keep moving. In second year, you go to the more advanced books, the Bhagavad Gita, Bhajagovindam, Atma Bodha, the Upanishads. Third year, you finish on the highest, Thesis on God. So you can do it at your own pace, but you've got some structured content to go deeper and deeper. Start with your learning first. If you have the capacity, and it'll be a natural reaction that'll come from you of wanting to share. You can share this knowledge by sharing the literature. So we have people here that are introducing us to schools, to the board of their companies. And we're lecturing wherever they have influence. So whatever is your circle, you automatically start sharing it with your circle. So with your family, bringing them to the academy, bringing them for a lecture, a retreat. And it just happens so organically. This is my circle. I can share it with my circle, my friends. So sometimes in some cities, we have a talk where a person's just invited their community, all their friends. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a few. Sometimes it's the public. They invite the city. It'll be 400 at a lecture. But here's the thing. If you're inspired and you've done the e-learning course, don't wait for Avanya and myself to come to your part of the world. You can share it. But if you think, you know what, that's not my speciality, I'm inspired, but I would prefer that, Sudhakar, look, you know, you've been in this, I can help with setting it up, come. That's where we can be of service. So when we're in your area, or if you'd like to organize it, share it with your community. Start with your family. There's a saying, charity begins at home. Start there. Keep spreading. Don't look for numbers. Amina mentioned impact. It's not about impact. It's about wanting to serve. Starting with yourself and automatically those around you. So it's not forcing it down people's throat. So that's the other thing. It's just when people come to you and say, this seems interesting, it's inviting people to something different, something better. And ideally, if we can get this knowledge at a particular level, so for instance, we've started translations in Portuguese of this book, and we are starting translations in Czech of this book. So where there's a community, we're getting them together. So the goal of what Avanya and myself are doing is we've spent years developing ourselves. And the natural thing is, having benefited, let me take it forward. Let me pass it on. And we're using our skills and expertise and different things that we've learned to share it with people around the world to their circles. You might be a CEO. You might find a better way of implementing it in a different way to everybody in your team. All of it is Vedanta. It is about being. And I close today's session with this line from Swamiji. He finishes the book by saying, you are humans. You alone can do it. Save yourselves. Save the world. So we have a responsibility. We've understood the predicament that we're in. Where do we start? Start here. And let it resonate and spread, depending on your capacity and inspiration, to further and further circles. That's our role in the revival. And who knows? It may have impact. That is the rise of the human. Now we take up questions.
We have 2 questions that have been submitted. The first question is, how do I know if my reasoning is weak?
At the time, you won't know that your reasoning is weak because you don't have anything outside of your reasoning to check with. One thing that we could do is that we could consult somebody that we believe has a strong intellect. And we can consult them and say, this is what I'm thinking. Am I missing any factors? Am I connecting the dots correctly? So just as you would go to a mathematics teacher and you would show your workings and you say, have I missed any steps? The other way is actually through trial and error. When you get the wrong answer, means if you reason and you get the wrong answer, you get the wrong effect, you get the wrong outcome, there you go. If you got the wrong outcome, something must have been wrong with the process. So you go back with the data that something was wrong and you try and find out what was wrong in it. So you get better from the fail, from the mistake. But depending on the decision, we would need to consult. So if it's a very important decision, it would be good to consult and check because it's not worth the consequences of the mistake. But for smaller things, rather make the mistakes, use the mistakes as opportunities to learn, refine and improve our reasoning, our thinking. But if it's an important area, consult.
There's an additional question submitted. It says, I have great difficulty in knowing myself. How can I improve?
So when you say knowing yourself, we've got to examine what that means. So if we start from the outside, okay, material. What is knowing myself? All right, so this is my income, this is my affordability. You know yourself there, okay? So this is my material personality. Go deeper. Physical personality. All right, what does that mean? Okay, I know my height, I know my strength, I know my capacity. That's physical capacity. Now, we don't take that too strongly as to mean yourself, because material aspect of you is outer layer. So that can change, right? So just as you would not say, I am this kurta. Why? Because this kurta may not be there. I change it. So same thing with the body. The body changes. Your material wealth changes. So then you go a little bit deep and you say, okay, does knowing myself mean the mind, emotions? And to know your emotions, to know your desires, that is to know yourself. How do I react in certain situations? When someone criticizes me, how do I react? When someone praises me, how do I react? Knowing your emotions, that's knowing yourself. But your emotions is not the complete you, because emotions change. Emotions belong to you. Emotions can be managed, controlled. So who's managing the emotions? Who's observing the emotions? So you say, okay. So to know myself, I got to go deeper than the emotions. But start there. You should analyze your emotions, analyze your desires. Go deeper still. And that's what we're doing in these sessions. We're getting to know ourselves better. Then we go to our intellect. And the intellect is to know our values, our roles, our goals. What is the North Star? What is the guiding light to which the intellect analyzes whether to do something or not to do something? This is our ethical system. This is our reference point to make decisions. So if those things are not clear, the intellect battles to find clarity. So to know the intellect means to know, where are we going? What do we want to achieve? What do I stand for? And those values that you decide to be, that goal that you are working for, those roles that you've taken up as a father, nephew, niece, daughter, what does that look like? So that is far stabler, more permanent than passions of the mind, emotions of the mind, impulses of the body, ups and downs of wealth, market conditions. And that's why we say, actually, that's the real you. In a relative sense. The real you means like it's more permanent, like you can hold on to those values, doesn't matter what's going on outside or even what's going on inside. You've got those values to anchor you. Is there something deeper than that? Yes, the vasanas. And the vasanas are deeper than the intellect, because the vasanas is an expression or expresses as the body, mind, intellect, and the world that you see. So the vasanas are the seeds that produce and sprout as thoughts, mind, and intellect, and as the body. So the vasanas is your more permanent nature, your swadharma. But even nature can change. You work long enough, you put in an effort, and you can change that nature. And is there a period where there are no vasanas? Yes, self-realization. fourth state of consciousness, Turiya. And if you go deeper than the vasanas, you hit pure consciousness, spirit, self. That is the real you. So when you say you know yourself, have you gone right to the bottom, to the permanent part of you that does not change? The real I, the real me, the real you. And if you locate that, not the changing you, the clothes, or the bank balance, or the emotions, or the thoughts even, or the values, or the vasanas, but that which makes all of them enlivened, that is the real you. So fortunately, we have the material for that journey to go deeper within. And that's what this subject is about. So depending on whether you are inspired by literature or the lectures, which is the e-learning course, follow a course of study and reflect it. Use it to reflect. So you start thinking more and more about the deeper levels of your personality and start identifying with those levels and then becoming those levels. So this is how you can get to know yourself better. A daily study.
Our final question is from Paresh. It's with reference to last week's lecture. With reference to the question, what is it that happens when we die, as you spoke of in your initial remarks? Could you possibly elaborate further on this with perspectives from Advaita Vedanta specifically and other spiritual philosophical traditions as well? Because it seems there are many diverse views on this. Which one do we believe?
Nobody knows for sure what happens after death. Those who claim that there is no life after death, there is no evidence. And those who claim that there is life after death, no evidence. So it really is about which philosophy, which belief makes sense to you. And yes, in different traditions, many different theories. So I'm going to share the theory that Vedanta has. Vedanta says the moving point is desire. Desire is the prime mover in life. As long as there's desire, there's a need to experience. This session that we have today together is because of desire to learn philosophy. So desire is the potential energy for human experience. As long as we have desires, we've got to go and exhaust them. We've got to go and experience them. But then, when you die, what happens? Are all the desires gone? Of course not. We know people who've died, they have so many desires. So what happens? Question mark. What happens to all that energy? Energy cannot be destroyed according to the law of indestructibility of matter. It has to be transformed, changed in a different form. So what is happening to that subtle energy? The body we know disintegrates, decomposes, changes form. What happens to that subtle energy of desire? Then on the other side, we see the newborn. Now the newborn, they are appearing babies with desires already, with a personality already. You might have twins, triplets, distinct personalities. Where are those distinct personalities coming from? Where are those desires coming from? So the thinkers of Vedanta, they put the theory forward that there is a cause and effect. And this birth and death is just a change of environment. Just as desire changes you from experience to experience, it can change you from embodiment to embodiment. And those people who are dying, those desires continue in the newborn. Your desires take you to the environment that is best suited for your next fulfillment. So, depending on your desires, it will move you to where you need to be. Just as after this class, this desire is over, you will go to the area of next desire. Same thing is happening between death and birth. You end this embodiment when this body can no longer fulfill the desires of this body, and you take up a new embodiment that is better suited for the fulfillment of those desires. So what is moving? Your gross body doesn't move, but your subtle body, your mind and your intellect and your vasanas, that's what moves to the next embodiment. So all you're doing is you're changing containers. You're changing clothes. So I do not wear these clothes when I go for a run or when I play tennis. I'm just changing clothes for a different desire. So at the macrocosmic level, same thing we're doing between embodiments. So that is Advaita Vedanta's perspective. Advaita Vedanta at the highest level says all of this birth and death, you get freed from it when you find self-realization. Why? Because there are no more desires to exhaust, no more experiences required. You are complete, you are blissful. And when you reach that state, you realize all this that you thought was happening was just another dream. That's the highest. But you can park that last thought if it was too much. The fall of the human intellect is about understanding that what makes us human is the intellect. Animals have a body and a mind, but a human being has an intellect that is meant to be used. And we can use this not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of those around us. And ultimately, we can use this intellect, gross and subtle, to take us towards greater happiness and ultimately enlightenment. In order to bring about this revival of this intellect that has been neglected for many, many years, is not known in the education system, let us take it up personally. If we are inspired, if it makes sense to us, let us benefit by it. And then, according to our inspiration and capacity, let's share it. And I'd like to close with this quote. It is something that was written as an inscription on the tomb of an archbishop. And it goes like this. When I was young and free, and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change. So I shortened my sights somewhat and decided to change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I grew older, into my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing only my family, those closest to me, but alas, they would have none of it. And now, as I lie in my deathbed, I suddenly realize if I had only changed myself first, then by example, I would have changed my family. From their inspiration and encouragement, I would then have been able to better my country. And who knows, I may have even changed the world. So let's start by putting the daily reflection in, by changing ourselves. So thank you, everybody. Over the next 2 weeks, we have a Q&A session. So the questions that you submitted, we're going to be answering. We also have a lecture to share with you that we'll be posting. And then 2 weeks from now, after those sessions, we will start our study of the personality chart from the Vedanta treatise and the Bhagavad Gita. An incredible section that helps us find out where are we in the path of evolution, but also give us a picture of what the destination looks like. So look forward to seeing you in the weeks to come. Thank you, everybody. Hari Om.